Great. We have our next guest here, Sam, who will introduce himself in a moment. I've known Sam for a
Yep.
number of years as well. He is from the territory, and I'll pass it over to you. If you could introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Great. Thanks, Mumila. Sam Tutanuak. Sam Tutanuak is my name. Or back in the day, E2872. Yeah. Born and raised in
2872.
Baker Lake, E2872. Yeah, that's my Eskimo identification number that was given to me. Yeah. I'm gonna write a song about that someday.
New song ideas.
Yes, that is cool.
And sorry, you were born and raised.
Oh yeah, okay. I was born and raised in where you were in Baker Lake. Then I moved over to Rankin for the majority of my life, and just recently started a job in Kali. So I moved over there.
Can you tell us a little bit of the kind of music that you like performing or that you have recorded before?
Okay. I've recorded one album so far. I'm in the process of making another one. My music has been described as folk rock, which I thought was kind of different. But yeah, I'm into like family type music, some heavy subject stuff. Yeah.
What kinds of heavy topics do you talk about in your music?
In my album, there's one song in regards to coming back to family after being in addiction. As we all know, addiction is rampant in Nunavut, and I was one that was in that was caught up in that, and just at that time it felt right to write a song about coming back to a family that truly loves you and finding out what love is, as opposed to just it's kind of there. Yeah.
When you were recording your first album that has those kinds of songs and stuff, when was that album recorded? I'm trying to remember the year now.
2009 was the summer of when we did the recording. The album went out 2010. In that album, I'm proud, so proud to say the one English tune. That album had 10 songs, and 9 of them were in Inuktitut, and the one English tune hit #1 in the Aboriginal Music Countdown back in 2010. That's something I'm very proud of.
Definitely a big accomplishment. Do you prefer to write or sing or perform more in Inuktitut or English, or does it really matter to you?
It doesn't really matter to me, because it's all depending on the emotion that I have at the moment. I've picked up my guitar and I've sang about. I have a grandson. I love my grandson. I wrote it, like I just picked up the guitar and one day started singing in Inuktitut about my grandson. And damn, I wish I had my phone and hit record, but that didn't happen. And then there's times like just last week I wrote I picked up my guitar when I went stood in front of a microphone and I started singing, and just like went from A to B. And like, there's some editing that needs to be done, and that's an English tune. And the more I listen to it, it's like, wow, it's starting to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, to answer your question, it's really no preference.
For me, I find it's I forget the term. It's like your memory or your body remembers it. How is it? Your body remembers it more than your mind or some. I can't remember the term, but
Mm-hmm.
I listened to Susan Aglukak a lot growing up, and there are definitely songs I had to relearn. But all of the Inuktitut ones that I knew, it took me nothing. I didn't like. I I had to hear the melody for it, and all the words came back to
Mm-hmm.
me. So I find that Inuktitut songs for me in particular, there's more for myself on different emotional level of connection to
Mm-hmm.
what is being talked about. Um,
Yeah.
so you said it took about a year between recording to when the album was released. Is there anything in particular that sticks out a little bit for you that ended up being a challenge that you weren't expecting? And how did you, was it able to be overcome?
Oh, that's a good question. Because yeah, I when we did the album just outside of Ottawa, a little place called Clayton, Ontario, where shoot, Tracy Brown and for the life of me can't remember her husband's name. Um, anyways, they told me that like because like I sang, I played for them. Um, and I have bad timing when I'm playing music. I'm either one step ahead or three steps back or something like that. Um, Randall Prescott, that's who he is. Said, don't change. You're you're he said he's had certain high level musicians that are like that, and yeah, and yeah. Sorry, I've lost the question.
No, it's fine. It sounds like you are leaning towards sticking to what you're comfortable with and what you know in a sense, and not just following a particular trend. I asked if there were when you had that album recorded during that around that time, if there were any unexpected challenges that you weren't expecting, and how did you deal with them?
Oh yeah, okay. An unexpected challenge, big one for me was because I went down alone. I had no clue who was going to be um, in the background, like musicians, kind of what was going to be in the background. How we overcame that was Randall and Tracy. They picked out a good group of musicians to back me up, and man, it sounded great. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
yeah,
that's so exciting. And was
yeah.
there anything like, was that a goal that you were working towards, or if it's something that came around in terms of recording an album, was that something that you always wanted to do, or something that all of a sudden happened? How did that work out?
Oh man, this is going to be a pretty cool story. Back in I'm going to say 2006, Randall and them they came up to Rankin to record Inuktitut written songs, and they were doing the recordings over here at the CBC um, station. And my wife Bernie went there and did her thing, and they asked her if she knew of anyone that had Inuktitut written songs, and she said my husband. And they asked me to go over, and I was very hesitant. It took me 4 days to finally get the courage to get into the studio. And as soon as they heard my voice, Randall Prescott said, "You belong in the studio, or we need to do an album." And so the summer of 2009, I said, "Okay, let's do this." And yeah, but now, um, when you spoke of the memory, the body memory, I when I'm traveling or if people see me, they'll figure out who I am and they'll start singing one of my Inuktitut songs, and it's like,
Mhm.
wow, cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Wow,
yeah. Mm,
that's so exciting. So when you went
yeah.
down to record your album, you went by yourself?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, I went down by myself. Money being a big factor, travel costs. Yeah, that was the biggest factor for me to just go down by myself.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
that's something that a lot of people across Canada don't recognize or don't know about is that
No,
there aren't
exactly.
spaces for artists to record. There, it's hard to find money to be able to afford equipment and to do that.
Hmm.
Nunavut
Hmm.
artists, they travel south. They go somewhere else a lot of the time to be
Yeah,
able to record. So
yeah.
when to put it in context, I guess, for people that aren't aware, it means you traveling by flight because you can't drive
Hmm.
out of the territory and then
No.
staying without family, without friends, without
Hmm.
the normals, whether that's food or just
Hmm.
how differently things can work, and
Hmm.
you want to pursue a career, and to do that you have to actually leave and go quite a
Yep.
ways to be able to
Mm.
do that. Um,
Hmm.
and I think on that note, I think that we've been seeing more and more Inuk and Nunavut artists, musicians, which is great. Is there anything that in particular that you would like to see in the future for musicians and artists in the territory?
Oh man, that would be so cool. Yeah, like because Nunavut, mute, we're all isolated. We all have a community center. It would be so cool if there could be space in the community centers for musicians of all ages to just go in for a couple of hours and just let it all out, you know. Um, like when I played with groups here in Rankin, it was pack up your own chords, your own amp, go over to somebody's house, make arrangements to be at somebody's house for a couple hours, and say that we're going to be making a lot of noise. Um, and it was just a spiral. I mean, not a spiral, but it was like where we're going to go next. Which building can we access next? And if and I've seen, like, I just saw a little bit of your segment with Asiva, and I've seen her perform in Rankin, and wow, like, and to think that there's more out there, that there's more musicians that are just as talented as the ones that are making the scene now. It would be so cool to see communities in Nunavut have a designated music place. Yeah,
Mhm,
some place to go
definitely.
play music. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be so fun too. And it's crazy when you give anyone, I find in particular youth, if you give them some like a little instrument to play around with, the amount of things
Hmm.
that they come up with, oh my goodness,
Yeah,
so fun,
I know.
so fun.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
also healing, it's being together, it's,
Hmm.
depending on the musician, it can be for physiotherapy, it can be for teaching, it
Hmm.
can be for learning, it can
Yeah,
be for, there's so many valuable things to music, and
yeah.
it, it's only beneficial to have it more accessible to people in Nunavut.
Hmm.
Just before we wrap up, is there anything that you would like to do in your music career for the in the future?
If there was no, yeah, I would love to go on a tour, share my music, um, meet great other musicians. That would be something that I would love to do in the future. Um, but the reality is, we have to work, pay bills, survive. And so until that's done and over with, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate your time and really appreciate having you here. Where can people find your music?
Spotify, iTunes, those are the only two that I know of right now.
Great.
Yeah,
So
iTunes and Spotify. Yeah.
Spotify and iTunes, Sam Tutanuak. Awesome. Thank you so much for being
Yeah.
here. I really,
Yeah.
really appreciate it. Super fun.
Yeah.
Fun talking.
Yeah. Again, thank you so much for having me. I'm
Nice.
honored.
Mm,
Yeah.
thank
Whatnot.
you. Whatnot.
Mm. Bye.
Bye.